Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this BAFTA Rising Star Q&A. I'm Maria Cadaby, Head of Programs at BAFTA. This is part of our BAFTA film sessions, which take place every year. It's an annual series that celebrates the nominees for the upcoming British Academy Film Awards, which take place on the 19th of February. I'm thrilled to be hosting this year's Extraordinary Talents, nominated for the Rising Star Award. So, without further ado, our nominees for this year's BAFTA Rising Star. Naomi Ackie. Sheila Atim. Mackey. And Daryl McCormack. Fortunately, Amy Lou would send her apologies. She's not feeling very well and is gutted to miss this evening. So let's send her a speedy recovery. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're going to start, as most people always do at the beginning. Everyone thinks kind of an Rising Star is something that happens overnight, but all of you have worked and for years kind of honing your craft, shaping what you're doing to get to where you are today. So if we can just start kind of with your journeys in, kind of were they through film school, were they through kind of just, learning your craft through watching people? Sheila, I'm going to start with you as I'm looking at you.
Start with me. I'm not first in the row. Okay, fine. So my journey in was a little bit more unorthodox, maybe, although maybe not. But I was at uni doing a biosciences degree. And I knew before I went to uni, this is why I was like, why are you starting with me? And I knew before I started that degree that I wanted to be an artist. I thought I just wanted to be a musician. I'd kind of made that decision when I was 18, at sort of A-levels time when I was going to be a doctor, and it all went a different way. And then I went to this arts college in North London, and it was doing really cheap classes for singing and acting and all kinds of performing arts. So I went there to learn a bit more about singing and writing songs, and then I joined the drama class, and I'd done drama for A-level and at school, and I'd done all the school shows, and I loved it. And then the teacher of that class was developing a play at the time, and he was like, do you want to come and do some workshops? And I was like, what's a workshop? And he was like, you just come and sing some songs? And I was like, oh, okay. And then years later, he put on the play, and I'd always assumed that at that point he'd come and get the real guys in, like I was the placeholder for the professional actors to come in. And he was like, the play, the music, do you want to be in it? And that play was at the Globe. And then I got an agent, and that's been my agent ever since.
Amazing. And now you're also Olivier Award-winning actress.
Yeah, it worked out. It worked out. It's all right. It was, you know what I mean? As the kind of sliding doors thing goes, it's okay. But I want to take that as an opportunity to really raise up, access to the arts and what these organisations do, like the ones that I went to. Classes were like £2 for 2 hours. Wow. And, with the inflation and cost of living, I don't know if that's really possible now, but like those organisations and institutions and charities that are trying to increase access to people who maybe aren't able to go through the more traditional routes or the more expensive routes to be able to be a part of just making art and expressing yourself, even if it's not going to be a career, is really important. So I really try and be involved in youth arts as well as a result of that. So yeah, I owe a lot to them.
And Emma?
Onto me. That's really unfair.
Sorry, that's not me.
How did I start? I went to university also, and I did English language and literature at the time because I was obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with reading. And I went to Leeds, which meant I could do a bunch of other stuff because I hate doing one thing. So I could do law and French and cinema and Spanish, so I could sort of keep it quite general, which I enjoyed. And then I did acting there and sort of did stuff for the acting department and theatre department, and caught up on lost time because I didn't really do it when I was a kid. And then once I'd sort of wrapped up university education, I told my parents I was going to move to London and become an actor. which was, but I said it was, it's my, it was going to be my project, and I was really set on it, and I sort of moved down and worked in a, like a clothes shop, and then was an au pair for a bit, and then during that time I was auditioning for drama schools and also going to these acting classes as well, like scene study they're called, with Lawrence Mitchell, and he became my acting coach and my acting teacher, and so every week I went and he took me under his wing, also gave me free classes because I had no money, and London is expensive, and then after about a year there, he then recommended me to my agent, and she signed me, and then I started auditioning for things, and then that's it.
Here
and
you
then,
are.
Yeah, and here I am. Yesterday that was.
And Daryl.
Okay. So yeah, I started in Ireland. Grew up there. And went to Dublin to drama school. I spent 3 years there, and then spent a further 3 years, doing a lot of plays and bits of TV, tiny bits of film. And then 5 years ago, I moved to London, and kind of hit a reset button because I didn't have a job that brought me here, and not many people knew me here. So I was back kind of square one, waiting tables and whatnot. And I just kind of took to everything that was available, like workshops and play readings, and I just was uber keen. I just felt like I was going to see stuff, and then I had an agent when I first got here that started putting me up for things, and I guess over the course of a while you just get bits jobs here and there, and then it kind of leans you away from waiting tables and whatnot. But yeah, it kind of started more for me when I got to London. I think Dublin was more of a preparation in some sense, and then London, it really, doors began to open up a lot more. So yeah, that's my journey.
Naomi.
Like similar. I feel like really similar to everyone else. I have a very obsessive personality, and I at 11 was like, I want to be an actor, and then literally I'm 31 now. For 20 years, I've just been like obsessed. It kind of grew out of a love for musicals and stuff. My mum brought me up on like West Side Story and Sound of Music and stuff, and I always loved the twirly skirts. and then it's so similar. Like going to like theatre, like Almeida Theatre. I don't know if they still run it anymore, but like they had a youth thing. So while I was at college around the corner at Seton Islington, on a Thursday, I go and like do a theatre class, and that was to try and get into drama school. And then drama school, I left at 20, and at that point I thought theatre maker. That was my whole thing. I just wanted to be a collaborator, deviser, make fringe theatre. And then, at 24, landed my first film job, and now it's and then here.
and now you're also here.
We are all here.
We're all here. The roles in particular that kind of have created this nomination for all of you, there's a duality actually in all of the roles that you play. There's kind of a real brutality, but also real sensitivity to it. And you've all spoken about kind of the idea that, being interested in lots of things. And I think that's kind of the essence of sometimes what makes a really great actors, because you're curious and you're interested in so many things. And so if you could all kind of just talk about the preparation for each of your roles, because they're such strong human beings, but they lay out their brutality and sensitivity in two folds, and how do you even kind of get into the headspace to play a person like that? And so I'm picking on people. I'm sorry, I'm Daryl, I'm coming to you first.
Okay, we're all introverted, by the way. I don't know if any of you guys can tell, but we're all actually really shy. So for me, it's a kind of case where I'll seek out scripts that just start to grab my interest. And what I tend to find is that when one does, it's not really a preparation of like, what can I do? But I think over a course of time of reading it enough, it starts to infiltrate you in a way, and and it starts to actually bring out parts of you that actually align with that character and stuff. So I try not to preempt too much what a character will be before, I guess, the script is really speaking to me. As wanky as that sounds, but that's just kind of that's how, I don't know, I find the most organic way for me is just to kind of continue to read it and then allow that to springboard onto other, references, and then at some point something starts to emerge or something,
With Leo Grande in particular, then, because it's a fictionalized character, and it's something then obviously springboarded for you. But then when that did you build a backstory in your head? Did you know kind of who he was and kind of, what he liked to read and who his parents were? And kind of did you...
Not really.
No, it didn't.
I just think that's a lot of effort. Like, I don't know, sometimes I'm like, just, I don't know if in the middle of a scene I'll be thinking about what's his favorite book, I like to jump straight into like, what's his biggest wound? You know what I mean? Like, what is the wound in his life that's actually formulating him in terms of like his lowest moments, his highest moments, and how is he kind of healing himself, or what's the journey for him to go, and how does the wound kind of initiate his journey from the beginning of the film, and I kind of operate from there and let the rest fall into place. I try not to get too caught up in the specifics because I think I'll just get lost, but if something like deep within the character is kind of hitting me, then I'll trust that enough to just let that be the driving force. Yeah.
Similarly, Sheila, for kind of Amenza in The Woman King, kind of another fictionalized character, but fictionalized kind of based on kind of a true tribe that existed. Kind of what was your starting point there? Kind of was it the similar? Did you kind of, what's wounded her?
Yeah, and I think my overarching starting point was the fact that she is a member of the Agojie army, right? So the army as a group have a shared history in terms of how they operated, what they stood for, why they existed, so there was that to deal with, and a lot of that is already in the script, so that was quite useful, and much like Daryl said, I try to keep it lean as well because it's just too much. Otherwise, I'll overwhelm myself if I'm doing like lots and lots of research. So yeah, questions like what drives her. I think you take your clues from the script as well and from what is happening in the section of the story of that person's life that you are portraying within the course of the film, whatever the 2 hours, 3 hours are. So you have to figure out how she got to that space specifically. How is she having this conversation with this person and what's come before in order to inform that? And then you talked earlier about the kind of split, the kind of duality in our characters. And for Amenza, for those who don't know, she was a member of this army and a warrior, but she was also the spiritual leader and the kind of female spiritual leader to the king and advisor. So she had these two sides of her, which can seem really at odds, particularly from a more sort of Western-leaning point of view, because our idea in the Western world of spiritualism is very much at odds with violence and killing. But when you understand more about Vodun in now Benin, they are actually more kind of well-linked than one would initially think. And then the training, like the physical training of trying to be a warrior, like what? When you, do you know what I mean? When you've just lived your life in London not needing to be a warrior, like, suddenly they're like, here's a spear, what are you going to do? That was the physicality of it as well. That was a huge part of trying to
just talk about that training. My God.
Do you know what? For the first time in a long time, I did like a video kind of recording of I trained to a video recording of our trainer Gabriella McLean, and I'm still sore like today because I haven't done it in a while, and I was like, is this what we were doing? This is mad. But it was difficult, but it was an extremely bonding experience. It made me have so much more respect for the people that I was portraying, so much respect for my fellow colleagues as well, to like see Viola Davis like pumping weights like this with her guns just popping. I was like, oh wow,
At 56.
It's madness.
At 56.
Madness. So yeah, I think it was, that job, it was a very kind of all-encompassing experience in terms of accessing character. And I think it's, it's a wonderful thing and a gift when you get a role that is able to do that for you. That doesn't always happen. But I mean, listen, I complained a lot. I'm not gonna. I can sit here now and be like, yeah, like I was. But I whinged. I love a whinge.
Emma and Naomi, obviously, Sheila and Daryl have kind of spoken about the idea of not wanting to be clouded by the depths of research and backstory, but your characters are both based on real life people, obviously extremely different time periods. One extremely well documented, and one kind of documented, but almost through third person, even kind of through a sister or other people.
Yeah.
So, in terms of knowing that they both existed, how do you then approach it?
I feel like yours is a different beast now.
Very documented. There was like a whole kind of compartmentalizing of the task ahead, which is accent, movement in the public, movement in private, singing all the songs. Then it's like about the perception of someone. And the biggest thing I realized about playing Whitney was that I had to scrub away my perception of her, which is really hard because I've put Whitney and people like Whitney on a pedestal for so long that when I got the part, it was like, how do I live up to that person? When actually it was like, what any person I think in general is asking to be is seen for what they are, not how the media or, I don't know, fame and all of that makes you out to be. It was an extremely humbling year of my life because I am stubborn and obstinate, and also I struggle with keeping my ego in check in a way. And I say ego when like you try something and you're just not good at it, and then you know that you have like a timeline. There was one time I told my sister, I was like, I had heard this thing, which might be a myth, it might be true, which is 10,000 hours makes you an expert.
Yeah.
And I had
Malcolm Gladwell and the outline
right?
theory.
Okay. Yeah. So I had no, seriously. I looked at the first day of the shoot and was like, how many hours is that? And I like tried to calculate how many. 10,000 hours wasn't even the amount of time that I had to prepare. And so I know I was fucked from the beginning. But it was such an amazing thing, and it had so many different parts to play. But ultimately, if you practice it enough and you interpret it enough, then you can let it all go, and then in the moment you can just be. And that is the goal for any role. For me, I think for everyone here, like, you know, to be able to cultivate a character where you can just forget that you're even playing a character, and then that's what I was aiming for with Whitney.
Did it very well.
Thank you.
Emma.
Well, I mean, that's the point you ended on, is that I think that there is something quite overwhelming to an extent of all this research that is possible if it was a real person. And Emily obviously was real, but a very long time ago. And like you said, these are the accounts that we do have of her, or of her sister, or people who knew the family sort of secondhand. So there's nothing prescriptive about it and her. And there are lots of sort of interpretations of her and how she existed and how she navigated life and how she liked to walk her dogs and do lots of housework, and you know, was just obsessed and was an obsessive person. That is one thing that everyone agrees on. But so there had to be an element of that, and there had to be something that was very electric and alive at all times. And so and these all the sisters and the brother, you know, were exposed to a lot of culture, and they had languages, and they learnt languages from a very young age, and they had books, and they lived on a tiny village, you know, and they were completely ostracized from everything, but they had church, and their father was what's the word? I was going to say vicar. It's not the official term, but anyway, so they would go every Sunday, and he would put on a show, almost, not to reduce it, but they would see that, and they would sort of marvel at that. So they were always exposed to stories and very curious beings, and so that to me was very interesting, and obviously the starting point is, you know, I tried to get my hands on everything I physically could and read all the books and the biographies and watch all the adaptations and the documentaries and everything that was there. And then, like everyone is saying, and rightly so, you sort of just have to then you're like, well, actually this is the script, and I sort of have to stick to what the script is and tell that story and focus on what the director is trying to say here and what their vision is. But I do love that, and I think in all of these films, what I like is that there's sort of a hopefulness to it, and to the characters, and to being seen, and I'm trying to figure out what makes these people tick and give them a new lease of life. And so it's just sort of endlessly fascinating. But you're right, you sort of have to stay focused on the script. That becomes your Bible, and you kind of have to, use that and rely on it. Yeah, I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does, yeah. That notion of being seen, so many people always talk about the burden of representation, but it's not really a burden, it's a gift, kind of, when you are able to and allowed to do it, and kind of all of these roles, kind of in terms of representation in race and gender, and moving kind of narratives forward have allowed us to do that. So kind of when you now are offered roles or look at them, through what lens do you do it? Kind of, is there a lens, or is it just that this is a great script, I want to do it, or do other things come into play now?
Yes.
You know what? I got quite excited about that because I've just come into this space now where I'm like, there's no rules.
Yes.
Freedom.
I know.
Oh my gosh, like a creative autonomy. Like, oh my gosh, like I can do whatever I want to do. And that isn't necessarily to say that all the doors are open, but it is to say that, like, I think as a younger actor, I felt like I was always in reaction to something. And I think there's something about being someone who doesn't necessarily, fit the traditional role from back in the day, that it's like, wait, that means there's this whole path of opportunity where I get to create any kind of career I want, any kind of life I want, where I don't have to rely on my identity. That I'm like really out here to try and do some really various random stuff in my career and not have to answer to anyone.
Yeah.
And that's freedom.
Yeah, very well said.
Yeah, all in agreement. Yeah. So in that vein, then what do you all want to do? What kind of would be the ideal?
I think, like, on the point of representation and what Naomi just said, for me, the beauty of being able to work on something that represents more than just, a film, but a people, particularly a people who haven't had the chance to be spoken about or tell their own stories or whatever. It's not just about the opportunity to do that, but it's also about, for me, seeing the impassioned people who come to those kinds of projects. So that has inspired me to just want to work on things where everyone who's on that thing is also passionate, just as passionate as me. Because when you see the difference between people who are working on something that they really think is important, and they're like fighting for it, and they're like, this is, like, we all have to be each other's ride or die on this thing, which, like, I really felt like that from The Woman King, like Gina Prince Bythewood, the director, protected us so brilliantly. Same with Viola Davis. Like, those two at the helm were just this wonderful team of people who were, really willing and guiding this project to be everything it needed to be in a time where it got made, but it wasn't easy to get it made. Do you know what I mean? So I think for me, it's about that. It's like, if you're not going to ride for the project the way I'm trying to ride for the project, then maybe we shouldn't do the project together. Do you know what I mean? And that's, like, representation. Projects that have a lot of representation, I think, have been an example of the kind of passion that I want to bring to anything, even if that's not the forefront, even if it is stuff like what you've talked about, where it's just doing anything and being anything and creating new ideas, futuristic ideas.
Yeah. Well, I was just so engrossed in both your answers. I'm just like, for me, yeah, it's kind of to the degree of, like, I don't know who I am yet fully, and so I kind of don't want to ever landscape a kind of like a prism in which, I want to surprise myself. But in saying that, I have to kind of, sometimes you do have to wait and see, or go and create those roles that kind of undefine the kind of labels that we put on each other. And I think it is changing, and we're in a really good place, a privileged place right now that we're in that transition. But for me, I kind of want to exist as a character, and also just, I just like to try and find the freedom without feeling like I don't know, that there's a socio-political element to a role. You know what I mean? I like to just try and get past that sometimes, because I think that will also educate each other, that we don't always have to fall into a certain thing to be seen. Like, you know what I mean? I want to see that kind of flexibility a bit more, but hopefully time that will happen.
Just like seeing the humanity and what connects us on that level.
Exactly. Yeah. And just kind of escape an element of like, I understand you because you're in that prism, right? If we can get past that, if we can go, I understand you and I don't know why, or, I think that's an exciting place to be, just as humans, to be able to continually expand and connect. So that's my hope, we'll see.
Yeah, I agree. No, but it is an exciting time, and I feel like, if it sounds like we're all we've all had very different paths and everything, but if it sounds like there's that same curiosity and that same passion and that thing of it doesn't matter if it takes a little more time to find the next project, because you sort of, I don't really want to waste my time on something if people, it's exactly what you said, if people aren't going to be on your level and understand what you're trying to do and the kinds of stories that you want to tell. It's the thing of also just telling a story and being allowed to just tell a story also, and to have that freedom, whatever that means to you. I think it's actually quite rare to be given that free rein and to be trusted, because there is so much competition out there and there are so many people trying to say so many things, and rightly so. It feels like there's just this need for everyone to unleash and take all of this, everything, or the chains or whatever, the layers off, and so that you can sort of get to what the core of the story or the character, and just what it is and what the essence is of what you're trying to say. And it's just, it's getting rid of all the noise around that, I think, that will be really helpful. And also, and that takes time, and you need to be surrounded by the right people, and you need to have the time to figure out what your taste is. You need to educate yourself and read those books and watch those films and listen to the news, be aware of everything that's going on, which might sound overwhelming, and it is, because it is. But then you take from that, and you sort of have to sift through it and choose what you want to take from that and how that's going to make you evolve and grow as a person. And also, I think that naturally you will just attract those energies from other people. So when you do attach yourself to a project, or you work on something, you find a script that just, I don't know, unlocks something, or something makes you tick, you think, okay, well, you then start thinking of all the possibilities. The potential is what is exciting. When you start understanding that there's so much potential, and that you've been given this much, and oh, this is great, and I'm fine with this, and then you meet someone else, and you're like, oh no, what? There's all of this behind the door. What, are you kidding me? All of this it's infinite, and so. It's really exciting, and so you kind of feel like hopeful and a kid again, because then you want to spend your time fighting for the right things, and that as well is endless and means something for everyone in this room, means something different. But I think that's what's exciting, and that's what we should hold on to. Yeah.
You're all hopefully at a very fortunate stage now where kind of there are possibilities, and hopefully they are endless, and you can kind of pick projects and go. But if you can think a little bit back, kind of for a lot of the audience here tonight who might be starting out on their journey as well, the very notion of rejection is something really, really hard to kind of contend with and deal with and kind of keep going. And I wonder if you can just, any of you talk about kind of how you kind of, because it's a hard business and there's so many more no's than there are yeses, let's be honest. So how you kind of deal with the notion of rejection to kind of keep yourself going forward?
I actually had a conversation with a musician in Belfast about this. She's a singer, but we were chatting, and I think one of the main things, if you're starting off, and if you have a particular vision for where you want to go with your career, it's an essence of just really holding on to that vision, despite the kind of, because the outside world, right, they don't see where you want to go. And so sometimes you have to just trust that that vision inside you, that sight that you have, is as real as everything else that you see in the real world, but it just hasn't been manifested yet. So you really have to just protect that, and you have to really look after it, and kind of welcome the no's to a degree. Because like for me personally, I think when I get a no, I'm like, yeah, it'll hurt, you know. But I think if you kind of go back to that drawing board and that vision of where you see yourself going, you can only you can't help but just continue to move forward. So that would be my suggestion, is just to really build that image for yourself and just hold on to it and believe it to be real. Like don't just think of it as like someone can easily. And also, here's another thing. If an idea of someone, sorry, I'm off. I don't have a pen. No, I'm kidding. If you think of like your idea, your dream as a seed, right? And you're going to share it with someone, think of that other person as either good soil or bad soil. Because like if they're not in a place in their life where they're a bit bitter or they're not as hopeful as you, like just be careful who you share that with, because sometimes words can be so damaging, and what you're handing over is very precious, you know what I mean? So just be mindful of like who it is that you're sharing these ideas with. Like surround yourself with people who say yes to you, do you know what I mean? And surround yourself with people who challenge you beyond, who go and plus, you know what I mean? Those are the kind of people that I think really protect you as you're starting off, because the industry hasn't seen what's inside of you yet. So that would be my main thing. Just make sure you've with good vibe people that encourage you, you know.
Yeah.
I think to add to that, fully agree. I think there's also something about knowing that every time there's a yes, it's not adding value to who you are as a person. Equally, when someone says no, it's not subtracting value to who you are as a person. Yeah. There is something so important, and I think it's like really hard with art stuff, whatever type of artist you are, because it's like your soul. It's like every time you're like, I just offered a piece of me out, please take it, right? And it's personal. Is that just me? But like it feels personal, and so I remember like coming up and being told no felt like a personal no, no Naomi. Right? And actually that's not necessarily true, and the biggest lesson and I'm still learning that now, is how do I expand my life so I find value in other things. The thing is going to come or it's not. Yeah. The dream, the job, the money, whatever you want is either going to come or it's not, or you're going to find another joy or something else. But the more you expand your life, expand your mind, find other ways to make you feel empowered, it's actually going to feed into your art, which will then give you the energy to go back out again. And I think sometimes in our industry, the idea is to will it to happen with your brain. Like, ah! And actually, I don't think so. I think it's actually like holding it tightly but lightly. You just let it sit there. If it comes to you, it's yours.
We're getting real life lessons here.
Oh.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go. No, shut up.
I was just going to add to, because it links directly to what they were saying, which is on top of all of that, like, just remember that there will be lots of, if a no does come, there could be lots of reasons why that no came, which could be nothing to do with you or completely out of your control. And I don't mean to say that in a disempowering way, because I think what you guys have said is very empowering, and that's the way you can, you know, take ownership over the things you can control. For example, the other things that you choose to be interested in your life, or the positivity or the people that you hang around with and share your time and your energy with. But there are also lots of things you can't control. And what you said about like just willing it to work, it's like if you place all of that pressure on yourself, then the onus is entirely yours when it comes to whether or not you secure a job. And that's not true. You know, you could be a great actor, director, writer, whatever, particularly in the case of actors, but it's just somebody else pipped you to the post for something that you couldn't change. You know, your performance was fantastic. So yeah, don't load too much responsibility on yourself when it comes to securing opportunities. Just do your best. Do your best and make sure that you prioritize your happiness and your health and your life, because that comes first above everything else.
Amen.
Yeah.
We are Oprah.
free therapy here, free therapy. We have had some questions submitted from the audience here. Thank you so much for doing that in advance. So, in no particular order, if you had free rein to shed light on any person's life story on screen, who might you choose?
Yeah, I was like,
Should I pop a few out there? You can
yeah,
think
I'm
about?
bad at these things.
Yeah.
I was about to say one, then I forgot his name. Like, that's not a good start.
I would do my great-grandma. Because it's fascinating. She lived half her life in the West Indies and then half her life here during the Windrush era. And I think stories like that of like normal people, it's crazy because my auntie's got like some like tapes or recorded from my from back in the day. So stuff like that I find really fascinating of like not necessarily famous people, but people who have just experienced extraordinary contrast in their lives. I would say, oh yeah, my great granny.
What's her name?
That's actually a good question. You know what's crazy? Because my granny is called Mel. I know her name. But all the stories they've ever told me about my great granny, they never told me her name. That's a mad thing. Sorry.
Do you want to talk about this after? We could,
Yeah, I need some therapy.
could work through it. Shame, it's me. I'm really bad at these things because my memory is terrible. But this person's actually already been kind of portrayed in a film. Her name's Henrietta Lacks. And she was a black woman in America, and she had cervical cancer, I think. And her cells were taken to kind of study cervical cancer, and they're called HeLa cells, which this is now linking to my biosciences background. See what I'm doing there? And yeah, those cells are like kind of the cells that get used in almost all scientific experiments now. But she was, standardly kind of swept away. And yeah, I'd love to do more about her because I don't know how far that film went. But people like her, or people generally who kind of give their bodies to scientific study, it's such an incredible thing to be like, people write it in their wills, like when I pass on, do what you need to do to figure out how to, advance the world. So maybe somebody in that realm could be quite cool. It might be a bit gross, but, I think it'd be important.
With both of these, would you both ever think about writing those stories yourselves?
Whoa.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
yeah. Yeah?
Yeah, because she...
Yeah? Is this going to be a collab? Like, we're going to continue. Girl! I'll text you after. We're about to watch this space. In 2 years' time, we're going to be back here. Like, so this film about Naomi's great-grandmother, we don't quite know her name yet. Plus this other scientific person. We'll figure it out. We'll get back to you.
Happened here. Emma?
I don't have a specific person. In mind again, but I think I'm fascinated by what I don't, and not to surf off your idea because you're an actual scientist. But I'm fascinated.
That was 10 years ago.
Yeah,
like,
but still, I'm fascinated by it. I think I was really scared of maths and science when I was a kid because you either like, in France they're very like, you either like literature or you like science. Choose. And I was like, well, I guess literature, but like I kind of want to learn about science and stuff. But I was really scared of it. All that to say, I would love to play a female scientist. I would love to play like someone who has a brain like that, because I'm curious about it. But it would be a completely new thing to me. To play someone very, very kind of pragmatic and logical. I sound like I'm not like I am pragmatic sometimes, but I would find
not.
that. Oh, really?
So you might play a scientist that's not.
One of my best friends studied neuroscience at university, and I think she's made like she knows code and like that was really.
Yeah. There's so much creativity.
Code and science.
Code and
Random keywords there for you, but yeah, that's what I'd like to play. Codes and science. Your turn.
My turn. Hey.
Remember his name?
I don't remember his name. Still don't remember his name. I literally, all the way, I was just like, what's his name?
Like, what's his name?
I know he wrote a book. He was an American African American activist. He's biracial. He wrote a book called The Philadelphia Negro. They were about to make a film on him. I can't remember his name, but I found him really fascinating because he was highly educated, and he kind of had a real bit of a complex issue where he kind of didn't actually assimilate with his own people, and I thought that was a really interesting character. I was like, what on earth? And he was, so they were going to make a film on. Wow, thank you so much.
Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, okay, amazing. Google, thank you, Google. Trusty Google. I just didn't want to actually whip my phone out and just be like, it wasn't. William Dubois, that's it. I knew they were making a film about him, and then it kind of fell away, but I really was fascinated by him, and I just kind of wanted to get into his mind and how he didn't really, because he's as well to part of the African American community. Some, like my grandfather, speaks of him, and he wasn't always welcomed as well. You know, I think 'cause he's a little bit controversial at times about things he wrote, but I just thought he's a really fascinating character, and so that'd be someone I would love to play, but.
And your grandfather is in the creative industries as well?
Yeah, that's right. My grandfather's been getting more press than I have lately. I've been mentioning him every interview. Yeah, my grandfather Percy, he's out in Maryland, and he did theatre his whole life, kind of did off-Broadway, and then now runs a little Amdram theatre company outside of Baltimore. And he's going to be with me at the BAFTAs. He's actually going to be there, yeah. He's so cute. He's like his 81-year-old. Oh, he's so cute. Anyway, so yeah, he's going to be with me, so hopefully you'll get to meet him, but yeah.
Who are your guests?
Oh, my best friend Khadisha. Yeah, who I've known since I was 11.
My mum, she comes to all of them, and I think she expects to be invited now. She's like, so when are we going to? What's the date for the? How does the ticket? Yeah. So my mum, and then some of my representative team who I love.
My partner. Classically. Mama partner.
Okay, we've got one, I think, final audience question. Oh God, which one should we go for? What's the best acting advice you've ever received?
Okay. It was very short, actually. A friend of mine who's a kind of up-and-coming filmmaker, and I think he's going to do really well. But he just said, just focus on the work. I know it's so basic, but just continue to just aim for the stories that you're telling. You know, it's really simple, but it's one that I always kind of go straight to. Yeah. Sorry.
That's very
good. An actor recently told me this. I was freaking out. Actually, during the Whitney press stuff, I was quite anxious because of all the, poi polloi. And he held my hand and he just said, "Nay, just remember the story is the star." And that really, I keep on saying it. I feel like I say it all the time to myself and to other people because it just feels so right that actually, I know it's EE rising star and stuff, but actually, always the most important thing is the story.
It's up to us now. I think the sort of maybe the best note I've been given is throw it away. And I think just hearing you guys talk is so applicable beyond just the actual craft of acting, we've spoken about, research, and then at some point you throw it away so that you can just play the scene. But I think even in moments like you were talking about with your press, it's throw it away whatever sort of preconceptions you have, throw away the baggage that you may have placed on yourself or the baggage that other people have put onto you, because that can happen when you are an actor, everyone kind of projects things onto you. I think sort of throw it away and just allow it to be distilled down to the kind of basic core of what it is, and then you can enjoy it and other people can enjoy it, and it also means you can move on and do other work and have longevity and again, just enjoy your life. I'm all about enjoyment, guys. I'm all about fun.
All just fun. I don't know if there's a specific thing, but it kind of ties into what you were all saying earlier on that big question, the deep one. We're going on about everything and what it means, but like it sounds very easy for us to say it now because we're kind of living it, but I feel like you have to live it. Like it might sound formulaic, but it isn't. I think you just have to experience it. But when you do get nervous on set or you're anxious and you're overwhelmed by everything, remembering that it is just a film. Obviously it's super exciting, obviously it's super intense and everything, but just again, focus on the story, go back to the essentials, try and strip away all of the noise, all of the things that scare you and can suffocate you at times. And exactly what you were saying earlier also, but just be curious and cultivate everything around it. Cultivate, read the books, read the news, have conversations with people, try not to hide. I feel like we all go through different phases, and I definitely felt like I was hiding the past couple of years and was just very insular and very like I don't want to see anyone, I don't want to do anything, I don't know what I'm doing, da, da, da. And now I'm like, I want to go out, I want to go and see people, I want to chat, and like it's really exciting and try everything. But so you'll go through those phases, and there aren't any rules, and there's nothing prescriptive about it. And I'm just saying stuff, and I feel like an idiot. But you just have to kind of just live it, and yeah, cultivate and sorry, final point, but protect yourself as well, because you'll be very tempted to give away those sides of yourself because you want to prove yourself and you want to be like, I can do this. Look at all the stuff I could do. Tapping, whatever. I'll do everything. I'll do anything. But actually, but keep some of that to yourself and just keep it for the special ones, because the more people you meet and the more things you go up for, the more things you write, the more projects that you're a part of in any kind of way, the more you'll understand what your taste is, and the more you'll understand the kinds of people you want to collaborate with and spend that time with. So just really keep cultivating that.
I'm exhausted. That's such great advice. Thank you so much, and just thank you all. Thank you for coming out tonight. Congratulations on your nomination. For those of you who haven't voted yet, please go to the link on screen. There'll be a link at the end on screen. And be sure to vote for your EE Rising Star. The vote closes on the 17th of February. As well as today's sessions, we have a full day of activity taking place at BAFTA this Saturday, the 4th of February. So please go to www.bafta.org. We also have a public newsletter, so you can sign up to that by going to bafta.org/newsletter, and you can see all upcoming events. And of course, don't forget to tune in on Sunday, the 19th of February at 7 p.m. on BBC One and iPlayer for the EE BAFTA Film Awards. Thank you for coming. Thank you all.